Macarena had always been dedicated to her work and marriage. Her career as a graphic designer was rapidly growing, being recognized for her creativity and dedication. Every project she worked on was successful, gaining recognition and attracting new clients. Her relationship with Leonardo, a successful businessman, also demonstrated her talent and dedication. It seemed they had the perfect life together, a beautiful house, financial stability, and above all, a marriage everyone envied. But this apparent perfection began to be disturbed in recent months by a subtle change. Macarena noticed that Leonardo was distancing himself. Dinners had become mechanical and silent instead of filled with conversation and laughter. Leonardo's eyes, once so attentive and affectionate, now seemed vacant, often focused on the phone screen. Macarena always avoided sharing the messages he received and responded to, feeling an invisible barrier rising between them. She tried to ignore these changes, attributing them to the stress she felt from work. Leonardo was working on a significant project that demanded a lot of time and effort. Macarena firmly believed this phase would pass and everything would return to normal. But her intuition was telling her something different. Distrust grew with each night of silence and each furtive glance at the phone. Her confidence, which had sustained their relationship, was corroded by the doubt creeping into her mind. The situation reached a critical point when Macarena noticed something strange on a seemingly ordinary morning. She saw a message on Leonardo's phone while checking her emails. "Tonight I found you. I can't wait." A chill ran down her spine and her heart raced. Who was sending these messages to Leonardo? Moreover, what was the reason for his apparent involvement? Though she tried to stay calm, disbelief had already spread. Watching Leonardo during breakfast, she was surprised. Every word and gesture seemed to have hidden meaning. He was more cautious and almost nervous. Though she knew she needed to act, Macarena was not yet ready to confront him. She knew any accusation would be easily dismissed as paranoia without concrete evidence. The distance between them grew over time. He left earlier and came back later. Excuses for business meetings became more common and less convincing. Macarena tried to appear as the understanding and dedicated wife, but inside she was consumed by doubt. The suspicion of infidelity became a quiet obsession. She began to pay more attention to small details like the scent of his clothes, calls he received at unexpected times, and the discreet smiles while reading messages. Each little clue increased her fear and distrust. Her mind was being corroded by doubt, preventing her from focusing on work or anything else. One night, Macarena decided to check Leonardo's phone while he slept. With trembling hands, she opened the messages and found several suspicious conversations. But there was still no conclusive evidence. Before confronting him, she knew she needed something more solid, so she opted to follow Leonardo. Determined to discover the truth, she began meticulously planning each step. She was willing to take the risk to protect her marriage and, above all, her dignity, despite knowing her actions could alter the final outcome. That morning felt different from any other. Macarena sat in her office, engrossed in her work. The soft morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating the room. She was focused on an important project, developing an innovative design for a key client. The constant sound of the keyboard was almost therapeutic, helping her keep her mind off the problems with Leonardo. Her thoughts were suddenly interrupted by a familiar sound. A beep from Leonardo's phone, casually left on the living room table, indicated a message notification. Macarena hesitated for a moment, her desire to check the message battling against her sense of trust and privacy. But curiosity and growing disbelief won. She got up slowly and walked towards the phone. She opened the message with trembling hands as she unlocked the device. "Tonight, I found you. I can't wait." Her heart was directly hit by the simplicity of the words. Above all, she felt an intense sense of betrayal, anger, sadness, and fear. Who was sending these emails? Moreover, why had Leonardo not said anything? Macarena sat down, still holding the phone, trying to process the information. Her mind struggled to find a rational explanation that didn't imply infidelity. Perhaps it was a misinterpretation or a wrong message. However, all doubts were dispelled by Leonardo's response, which she read through the previous messages. He and she continuously exchanged affectionate and eager words, revealing an intimacy he no longer shared with Macarena. Doubt consumed her. She felt a knot in her stomach, as if about to vomit. Everything around her seemed to crumble. She took a deep breath and tried to stay calm. She knew she wouldn't be able to confront Leonardo yet. She needed more precise and proven evidence. That night, she decided to follow him. She would find out if there was another woman. She tried to appear normal throughout the day. She worked on her projects, made calls, and sent emails, but her mind was elsewhere. The message on Leonardo's phone lingered in her mind. Every minute felt like an eternity. Macarena was vigilant that night as Leonardo prepared to leave. He was more nervous than usual, overly perfumed, and wore his most elegant suit. He kissed her briefly on the cheek before leaving, saying it was an important business meeting. Though Macarena smiled and wished him luck, her heart was boiling. Macarena started preparing as soon as Leonardo left. She left the house in a jacket and hat to disguise herself. She knew she needed to be discreet. Using the car's GPS, she managed to follow Leonardo from a distance. She drove through the city streets with a racing heart, always keeping an eye on his car. Macarena's suspicion increased when Leonardo went to a part of the city they rarely visited. She parked a few blocks away and continued on foot. She followed Leonardo, trying to stay hidden. He entered a park filled with people, a strange place for a business meeting. Macarena hid in the shadows while Leonardo seemed to be waiting for someone. A few minutes later, a woman appeared. She was charming and mysterious, with an uncanny resemblance to Alexandra. Macarena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Her suspicion was confirmed. Leonardo was cheating. The message was not a mistake. Macarena realized she needed more evidence after the devastating discovery in the park. She felt betrayed and enraged, but also determined to gather concrete proof of Leonardo's infidelity. She knew confronting him without irrefutable evidence would be futile. He could deny everything, emotionally manipulate her, or, worse, turn the situation in his favor, making her look like the villain. This led her to take more drastic measures to uncover the truth. Macarena began crafting a detailed strategy the next morning. She needed equipment to monitor Leonardo without arousing suspicion. Determined, she went to an electronics store in the city center and looked for gadgets. After explaining her situation, the salesperson informed her about the available options, including GPS trackers, hidden cameras, and high-sensitivity microphones. Macarena bought several of these items, determined to install everything without Leonardo knowing. She waited until Leonardo left for work before starting the installation process. She meticulously hid microphones and cameras. In Leonardo's office, she concealed a camera among the books on the shelf. Another was hidden in the car dashboard. She also installed a GPS tracker in the car to track his movements at any time. The task required great care, and Macarena had to remain calm. She knew Leonardo would discover everything if she made a mistake, rendering her efforts useless. Macarena felt a mix of relief and anxiety once the devices were installed. She now had the ability to observe Leonardo's every move and gather the necessary evidence. She attentively monitored the recordings and listened over the following days. Everything seemed normal at first, making her question if she was being paranoid, but her patience was soon rewarded. While reviewing the car recordings one night, Macarena saw Leonardo receive a call. Though the conversation was brief, it brought many revelations. "Yes, we'll meet at the same place," he said. "Don't worry, Macarena suspects nothing." Macarena's heart raced. The woman's voice on the other end was familiar, but she couldn't immediately identify it. Determined to learn more, she continued watching the recordings. The following days were intense. Macarena spent hours examining the recordings and observing every detail. Her daily routine was completely altered. Her mind was always focused on Leonardo and his possible betrayals, even while working on her graphic design projects. The tension was palpable, but Macarena knew she needed to remain calm and composed. Finally, one night, as Macarena reviewed one of the recordings, she witnessed something devastating. Leonardo continued talking to the mysterious woman in the car. "Darling, I can't wait to see you tonight," he said, expressing his eagerness. The meeting was confirmed by the woman's affectionate voice. This was the proof Macarena needed. Her husband was indeed involved with another woman. The confirmation was painful, but it also brought clarity. Macarena understood there was no more room for delay. She needed to act and protect herself. With the evidence in hand, she began crafting a detailed strategy to confront Leonardo and ensure he couldn't deny the betrayal. Every step, from the initial approach to how she would present the evidence, was carefully planned. Macarena decided that confronting Leonardo at home would be the best approach, as he wouldn't have a chance to flee or hide. She mentally prepared for a difficult and agonizing conversation. She waited until Leonardo was calm that evening, then brought the recordings and screenshots of the messages and approached him. "We need to talk, Leonardo," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked at her with a slightly surprised and worried expression. "Yes, but about what?" Macarena sat next to him with the evidence in her hands. She handed him the recordings and screenshots, saying, "I want you to see this." As he took the documents and read and listened to the evidence, Leonardo's face shifted from surprise to shock. "This isn't what it looks like," he said, but Macarena interrupted him. "Leonardo, don't give me excuses. I followed you and saw you with her. I heard the conversations and saw the messages. This can't be denied." She remained firm despite her trembling voice. Leonardo fell silent, unable to speak in his defense. Macarena felt a clear mix of anger and pain. "How could you do this to me? After everything we've been through together, how could you destroy our trust like this?" Unable to meet her gaze, Leonardo lowered his head. "Macarena, I'm deeply sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I made a horrible mistake." But the apologies weren't enough for Macarena. She no longer trusted Leonardo and knew nothing he said could restore it. "Leonardo, I'm sorry, but it's not enough. You destroyed our marriage and everything we built. I need to make a decision now." She stood up with a newfound strength. "I need some time to think, but one thing is certain. I won't let you treat me like this. I won't let you ruin my life." Leonardo tried to speak, but Macarena silenced him by raising her hand. "I don't want to hear anything more right now. I need space." She then left the room, leaving Leonardo alone with his thoughts and regrets. Macarena knew the road ahead would be difficult, but she was determined to move forward. The pain of betrayal was still fresh, but she couldn't be defeated. No matter what it meant for her marriage, she was ready to fight for herself and rebuild her life. After the initial confrontation, Macarena realized she needed to stay vigilant to ensure Leonardo didn't try to hide further. She decided to closely monitor Leonardo's every move. She installed more cameras at home, in the car, and even in Leonardo's office. Every word and action would be recorded and examined. Due to her new vigilance, Macarena spent hours reviewing the recordings. Every detail was significant. A few days later, she recorded a conversation between Leonardo and Alexandra, which was the first significant revelation. "We need to be more careful," Leonardo said. "Macarena is becoming suspicious." Alexandra suggested changing their meeting place with a worried tone. Leonardo and Alexandra knew Macarena suspected something, confirming what she already knew. Though the pain of betrayal was overwhelming, it also fueled her determination. She knew she needed to act immediately to gather all the necessary evidence. Over the following days, Macarena watched Leonardo and Alexandra's every move. Every affectionate gesture, secret meeting, and private conversation was documented. The recordings left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Macarena couldn't ignore the intense and intimate relationship between Leonardo and Alexandra. Macarena began investigating Leonardo and Alexandra's social media profiles alongside the recordings. Her suspicion was confirmed by exchanged messages, shared photos, and recorded meetings. Each new discovery brought pain, but also strengthened her resolve to continue with her plan. One night, while reviewing the recordings, Macarena saw a particularly painful photo of Leonardo and Alexandra planning a trip. "We'll get away to that cabin this weekend," Leonardo said. "It will be perfectly isolated from everything and everyone." Alexandra agreed with a soft laugh that boiled Macarena's blood. Though devastating, this revelation also provided Macarena with the perfect opportunity. She decided the trip was the right moment to act. She began meticulously planning how she would follow Leonardo and Alexandra to the cabin to gather more evidence of their betrayal. She knew confronting them required irrefutable evidence. Macarena prepared everything the night before the trip. She reviewed every detail of her plan, ensured her disguise was ready, and placed more cameras and microphones in strategic locations. She was determined to follow Leonardo and Alexandra without being discovered, record every moment, and finally confront them with the collected evidence. On the day of the trip, Macarena saw Leonardo say goodbye, saying he would be back soon. Though she was boiling inside, she nodded and forced a smile. She waited patiently until he left, then quickly dressed, grabbed her equipment, and followed him by car. She kept her distance by tracking Leonardo's car GPS, staying alert. Leonardo drove to a remote location outside the city. Macarena was attentive to his every move, keeping a safe distance. She parked far away and continued on foot when he finally arrived at the cabin. She hid in the shadows and watched Leonardo and Alexandra meet. They laughed and hugged each other. Macarena recorded every gesture, every word. Though it was extremely painful, she knew she had to continue. To confront them, she needed evidence. After a few hours, she decided she had enough. Exhausted but determined, she returned to her car and drove home. That night, Macarena reviewed the recordings, feeling a mix of sadness and anger. The evidence was irrefutable. Leonardo and Alexandra were blatantly cheating on her. But Macarena didn't feel defeated. Instead, she felt a newfound determination. She was ready to act, ready to confront them and demand her justice. Macarena began planning a meticulous revenge to make Leonardo and Alexandra pay for their betrayal. She knew confronting them wouldn't be enough. She needed to destabilize them emotionally and expose their betrayal so they couldn't escape the consequences. Every step was carefully considered, taking into account all possible reactions and alternative actions. Macarena decided that sowing distrust between Leonardo and Alexandra would be the first step in her plan. She began sending anonymous evidence to both, using screenshots and message recordings. She created fake social media profiles and started sending messages and emails suggesting they were cheating on each other. The goal was simple: create a climate of paranoia and distrust. The first messages to Leonardo suggested Alexandra was meeting other men. "Do you really think she's only with you?" one of the messages asked. "She's been seeing others. You need to open your eyes." Along with the messages, manipulated screenshots showed Alexandra in compromising situations. Already guilty of the affair, Leonardo began to doubt Alexandra. Macarena also sent similar messages to Alexandra, suggesting Leonardo might have other women. One message said, "He's not faithful to you. He's playing you just like Macarena." With these messages and fake screenshots, Alexandra began doubting Leonardo's loyalty. The two became increasingly tense. Mutual distrust grew daily, and arguments became more frequent and intense. Macarena watched from afar, pleased with her plan's success. But she knew she needed more than just messages to completely ruin their relationship. She decided to escalate the game. She began planting physical evidence. She used various brands of lipstick and perfumes to cause more confusion. One day, while Leonardo was showering, Macarena kissed his shirt with bright red lipstick, leaving a conspicuous mark. She did the same with Alexandra's clothes, using a strong masculine perfume. Leonardo was furious when he saw the lipstick mark on his shirt. He waved the shirt in front of Alexandra and shouted, "How do you explain this?" Though Alexandra was confused and stunned, she tried to defend herself, but the tension between them was evident. At the same time, Macarena began getting closer to Leonardo, offering support and understanding again. One night, Leonardo said, "I don't understand what's going on with Alexandra lately. She seems so distant." "Maybe she just needs some time," Macarena replied, maintaining her appearance as the understanding wife. "You know you can always count on me." Leonardo was deeply affected by Macarena's emotional closeness. Feeling increasingly isolated and confused about his affair with Alexandra, he began to lean more on Macarena. He felt guilty and conflicted about his feelings for Alexandra and his remaining devotion to Macarena, making him vulnerable to her manipulation. Every supportive and understanding word she offered was a calculated blow to further weaken the bond he had with Alexandra. Macarena knew she was playing a dangerous game, but was ready to take the risk. Her revenge plan unfolded more precisely each day. Nothing would stop her. She was determined to make Leonardo and Alexandra pay for what they had done. She watched their every move, always ready to adjust her plan. Finally, she decided it was time to act. She decided to call Leonardo and Alexandra to a meeting to clear things up. She planned to reveal everything during this encounter, exposing their infidelity and her manipulation. She wanted both to know they had been deceived and that the pain they felt was only a fraction of what they had caused her. As she developed her plan, Macarena realized she needed to do more to ensure Leonardo and Alexandra couldn't reconcile. She decided to focus on emotional manipulation, exploiting their weaknesses and insecurities. With greater care and precision, she began pitting them against each other. First, Macarena began instilling doubt in Leonardo. She took every opportunity to amplify his insecurities when he expressed concern or suspicion about Alexandra. "You know, people sometimes change and we don't notice," she said with a calm and understanding voice. "Maybe Alexandra is going through a tough time and doesn't know how to talk to you." These words, spoken with a tone of compassion, made Leonardo question Alexandra's loyalty even more. He began to scrutinize her every move, convinced she was being unfaithful. Their relationship, once built on trust and love, turned into a wasteland of suspicion and veiled accusations. Macarena emotionally approached Leonardo. She spent more time with him, offering support and understanding his needs. Whether preparing dinner or watching a movie together, she said, "I know you're going through a tough time. I'm here for you, as I've always been." Leonardo felt increasingly guilty for this emotional closeness, feeling torn between his desire for Alexandra and the devotion he still felt for Macarena. Alexandra faced a similar situation. Macarena used the same manipulation strategy to instill doubt in her sister. During a casual conversation, she commented, "Leonardo has been so distant lately. Do you think he might be hiding something?" Already aware of the tensions between her and Leonardo, Alexandra began questioning her husband's honesty. Every suspicious message or unexplained absence served as evidence of his potential infidelity. To heighten the tension, Macarena sent fake screenshots showing Leonardo talking to other women. These messages were carefully crafted to appear genuine. Seeing this evidence, Alexandra confronted Leonardo with anger and despair. She showed him the messages and yelled, "Who is this woman?" Though he was shocked and confused, Leonardo tried to defend himself, but his doubt was already evident. Leonardo and Alexandra's arguments became more frequent and intense. Macarena watched from afar, satisfied with her progress. Every conflict and accusation brought her closer to her ultimate goal. However, she knew she still needed something stronger to ensure their relationship was completely ruined. She decided to escalate the manipulation, resulting in an even more dangerous situation. One day, Macarena sprayed a man's cologne on Alexandra's clothes while Leonardo was in the shower. Leonardo confronted her as soon as he found the scented clothes. He waved them in front of her, demanding, "How do you explain this?" Alexandra tried to defend herself, but the evidence was too incriminating. As Macarena began sending more compromising messages, the tension reached its peak. She sent fake messages to Leonardo from an anonymous number, suggesting Alexandra had other lovers. One message read, "You're not the only one in her life. She's playing you." Already suspicious, Leonardo began to believe Alexandra was cheating on him with other men as well. Meanwhile, Macarena continued to emotionally approach Leonardo. She offered a shoulder to cry on or a comforting cup of tea, saying, "You know you can always count on me." Torn by guilt and confusion, Leonardo began to rely more and more on Macarena's support. His conflicting feelings for Alexandra and Macarena consumed him, making him more susceptible to manipulation. Macarena, fully manipulated emotionally, decided it was time to intensify her revenge. She needed to ensure Leonardo and Alexandra couldn't recover from the blow. To achieve this, she escalated her actions, weaving an almost flawless web of lies and distrust. First, Macarena planted additional evidence in Leonardo and Alexandra's belongings and clothes. Every detail was carefully considered to appear genuine and irrefutable. One night, while Leonardo slept, Macarena took his phone and continued sending compromising messages to herself, making it seem like they were from other women. She then deleted all the sent messages, keeping only the received ones. The next morning, while checking Leonardo's phone, She pretended to be shocked and hurt when she discovered the messages. "Leonardo, what is this?" she asked, showing the phone with the fake messages. Leonardo, still half asleep, was confused and tried to explain, but the evidence was too incriminating. Macarena pretended to be furious, but inside she was pleased. Each new piece of evidence found was another step towards completely ruining their relationship. Meanwhile, Macarena continued writing to Alexandra anonymously, suggesting Leonardo was cheating on her with multiple women. Each message included fake screenshots and manipulated photos. Already shaken by the constant fights with Leonardo, Alexandra began to believe Leonardo was a serial cheater. Their relationship reached a point where the tension between them was unbearably high, and the arguments became increasingly violent. To complicate matters further, Macarena decided it was time to involve her old friend Patrick, who was also a lawyer, in her plan. Over coffee, she began talking about her situation. "Patrick, I'm in a complicated situation," she said with a sad and worried voice. "I don't know what to do because Leonardo and Alexandra are betraying me." Surprised and concerned, Patrick immediately offered his help. "Macarena, you need irrefutable evidence," he advised. "Once you have it, you can confront them legally." Inside, Macarena smiled. She knew gaining Patrick's support would be essential for the final phase of her plan. They began working together to determine the best way to present and gather the evidence. Macarena also began sowing distrust among their friends and family. She made subtle comments about Leonardo and Alexandra's relationship at social gatherings. "Have you noticed how they always seem to be together?" she asked with a casual tone. "Sometimes it seems like they're closer than they should be." These discreet comments planted doubts in the minds of those around them. The tension between Leonardo and Alexandra intensified. Each argument, each accusation, each doubt sown by Macarena drove them further apart. Leonardo began spending more time away from home, claiming he was at business meetings but actually trying to escape the pressure. Meanwhile, Alexandra felt increasingly lonely and desperate, not knowing whom to trust. Macarena knew she was playing a dangerous game, but she remained resolute. Each new action was carefully planned to prevent Leonardo and Alexandra from recovering. She watched from afar, pleased with her progress but also feeling a growing sense of guilt. Though she felt immense pain, she believed it was the only way to achieve justice. Finally, she decided it was time to act. She decided to reveal everything to Leonardo and Alexandra. She wanted both to know exactly how they had been deceived and how their actions had led to chaos. She prepared the evidence, reviewed the details, and waited for the right moment. Outwardly, Macarena appeared calm, but inside, she was filled with emotions. She knew she was about to destroy not only Leonardo and Alexandra's relationship, but also a part of herself. But she was determined to proceed. The justice she sought outweighed any remorse she might feel. Macarena knew the moment of truth was near when Leonardo and Alexandra met. She decided that the best way to expose everything was in a public setting, where both would be forced to face the consequences of their actions in front of friends, family, and colleagues. She meticulously prepared for every detail, ensuring nothing was left to chance. On the day of the meeting, Macarena invited several people to her home under the guise of hosting a party. The revelation needed to be witnessed by everyone involved. To prevent anyone from suspecting her true intentions, she created a pleasant atmosphere with food and drinks. As the guests arrived, she seemed calm and hospitable, but her heart was boiling with anxiety. Leonardo and Alexandra arrived together, displaying expressions of tension and discomfort. Macarena greeted them with a fake smile, hiding what she truly felt. She led them to the main room and expressed her gratitude for their presence. "I have something significant to share with all of you." The guests settled down, curious and somewhat confused about the reason for the gathering. Macarena began to speak, her voice firm but emotional. "The past few months have been a nightmare for me. I discovered that my sister and my husband, whom I trusted the most, were betraying me in an unforgivable way." The room remained silent and everyone looked shocked. Though Leonardo tried to interrupt, Macarena raised her hand to silence him. "Let me finish," she requested. "I have obtained irrefutable evidence of their betrayals, and today I want to share it with all of you." Macarena began displaying screenshots and recordings of compromising messages using a remote control. Murmurs grew with each new piece of evidence, and disapproving looks turned towards Leonardo and Alexandra. "This is ridiculous," Leonardo exclaimed, but his voice trembled with desperation. Alexandra was pale, nearly in shock. Macarena continued showing the evidence of deceit and manipulation. "Not only did they steal my trust, but they also lied to all of us. Today, they destroyed our feelings and trust." The room was filled with tension. The guests were caught between disbelief and indignation. Finally, Macarena looked directly at Leonardo and Alexandra. "Above all, I loved you both, but you destroyed everything. I can't forgive what you've done, but I can promise you'll never hurt anyone this way again." Understanding the gravity of the situation, Leonardo tried to offer excuses. "Macarena, please, I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I made a horrible mistake, but we can fix this." But his words fell on deaf ears. The people who once supported him now looked at him with disdain. Still in shock, Alexandra finally found her voice. "Macarena, I don't know what to say. Nothing I can say will justify what I've done. I was wrong. I'm deeply sorry." Her statement was genuine, but not enough. Their fate was sealed by the public revelation, and the damage was done. With the truth exposed, Macarena felt a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. She knew she had destroyed two people she once loved, but she also knew she had protected herself and restored her dignity. She looked at the guests, who were now murmuring among themselves, trying to process what they had just learned. With a softer voice, Macarena said, "I know this is a lot for everyone to take in, but it was imperative you all knew the truth. It's crucial that you understand who I believed I knew so well. I only ask for your respect for my space as I try to rebuild my life." Still reeling from the revelation, the guests began to disperse. Leonardo and Alexandra remained behind, silent and looking defeated. Macarena knew that from that moment on, nothing would be the same. Though justice was achieved, the cost was high. The consequences of Leonardo and Alexandra's actions began to unfold rapidly after the public revelation. The betrayal and manipulation spread like wildfire through the community. Friends and family, who once were close to Leonardo and Alexandra, started to distance themselves, unable to bear the gravity of the betrayal. Macarena felt emotionally exhausted and vulnerable, despite the relief of revealing the truth. Devastated by the public humiliation and loss of respect among his peers, Leonardo decided to take a break to reflect on what he had done. He rented a small apartment outside the city to be alone with his thoughts. He was tormented by guilt and regret, knowing it would be challenging to regain anyone's trust. He spent his days revisiting every mistake, trying to understand how he had reached this point. Alexandra decided to escape entirely. Seeking a place where she could begin to heal, she moved to a relative's house in a different city. The pain of betrayal and public humiliation left her emotionally shattered. She knew she needed time and space to reflect on her actions and find a way to rebuild her life. She understood it would take a long time to recover from everything that had happened, as her relationship with Leonardo was over. Meanwhile, Macarena faced the challenging task of reclaiming her life. The house that once was a warm refuge now felt empty and filled with painful memories. She decided to redecorate, attempting to give herself a fresh start by changing the furniture arrangement and painting the walls with vibrant colors. Each physical change in the environment represented a small step toward emotional healing. Macarena began attending therapy sessions to cope with her pain and confusion. Talking to a professional helped her process her emotions and discover a new path forward. The therapist advised her to explore her feelings, confront the pain caused by the betrayal, and find healthy ways to deal with the trauma. Gradually, Macarena started to feel better, but she knew there was still a long road to complete healing. Macarena eventually decided to reconnect with her old friends. She occasionally gathered them at her house, those who had always supported her. These social interactions helped her return to normalcy and reminded her that people cared about her. Her friends provided emotional support and words of encouragement, urging her to keep going. Macarena knew that eventually she would have to face Leonardo and Alexandra again, despite focusing on rebuilding her life. She decided she needed to seek reconciliation with herself first. She had to forgive herself for her role in the destruction.